Location: a wealthy suburban courthouse, 10 a.m. In a town where privilege shields the guilty and race determines perception, a young black boy named Marcus finds himself framed for a crime he didn't commit. With only circumstantial evidence, a fleeting glance at a black kid near the crime scene, the prosecution paints him as a criminal. As the trial unfolds, the truth about systemic bias and racial profiling comes to light, leading to a shocking twist that shakes the community to its core. Stay with us as we unravel the injustice Marcus faces and watch how truth and integrity ignite a battle for justice. Setting and a little scene for the overview. The suburban courthouse exudes wealth and order, with polished wooden floors and gleaming brass fixtures. The light streaming through tall windows casts long, dramatic shadows across the room. The judge, a stern, middle-aged white man, sits behind the high bench, his gavel poised like a weapon, ready to deliver judgment. Marcus, barely 13, sits at the defense table, wrists trembling in the orange jumpsuit that dwarfs his small frame. His hands are cuffed, and he keeps his gaze down, too scared to meet the accusing stares from the audience. His mother, dressed in a faded jacket, wipes away silent tears beside him, her hands shaking as she clutches a worn handkerchief. The prosecutor, a sharp-suited man, sneers at Marcus, depicting him as a menace to the neighborhood. This boy is exactly the kind of trouble we must eliminate from our community, he declares, his voice dripping with contempt. The audience murmurs in agreement, some shaking their heads at Marcus, while others whisper about the rise in local crime. Layla, the public defender, sits next to Marcus, her notepad filled with scribbled notes. She places a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder, whispering, "We'll get through this." Her voice is calm, but even she knows how stacked the odds are. She glances around the room, noting the lack of supportive faces apart from Marcus's mother. The judge, his expression unyielding, booms. The evidence points to him. A witness saw a black boy near the car just before it was stolen. That's enough for me. He sets the gavel down, his decision seemingly made. The prosecutor smirks triumphantly, confident that the case is all but won. Marcus's mother breaks down, sobbing, "They didn't see my son. They saw their fear." Her words echo in the silence, but they seem to bounce off the cold, indifferent walls of the courtroom. Layla squeezes Marcus's shoulder again, trying to offer some semblance of comfort, though she knows how unfair the situation truly is. In the back of the courtroom, a local reporter takes notes, his pen moving furiously as he tries to capture the tension in the room. He glances up occasionally, his face reflecting a mix of curiosity and unease. He knows that the story will spark controversy, but he also senses that the truth is being overshadowed by prejudice. Marcus shifts uncomfortably, the cold metal of the cuffs digging into his wrists. He wishes he could disappear, slip through the cracks in the floor, away from the accusing eyes and harsh words. He glances sideways at his mother, feeling a pang of guilt for putting her through this. He didn't steal anything, but proving that seems impossible. Layla stands, preparing to make her statement, her mind racing to find a way to break through the judge's preconceived notions. She knows that pointing out the lack of concrete evidence is essential, but she also fears that the racial bias in the room is too thick to cut through. The prosecutor, sensing victory, crosses his arms confidently, casting one more disdainful glance at Marcus. The judge leans back, as if ready to move on to the next case, not interested in hearing more. Layla knows she has to act fast before the final decision is made. The courtroom remains tense, the weight of injustice pressing down on everyone present, except the prosecutor, who revels in his easy win. Marcus's mother continues to sob quietly, her heart breaking as she watches her son, barely a teenager, treated like a hardened criminal. Where are you watching from, and what time is it? Share your thoughts below. Marcus grew up in a modest, predominantly black neighborhood on the outskirts of town. The houses were old but well kept, with paint chipping from the wooden fences and small gardens struggling to thrive in the uneven soil. His father was imprisoned when Marcus was a baby, leaving his mother to raise him alone. She worked long hours cleaning offices downtown, coming home exhausted, but always making time to ask Marcus about his day. At school, Marcus was known for his creativity and love for drawing cars. He would often sit in the back of the classroom, sketching during free periods lost in his imagination. His teachers often said, "That boy can sketch anything on wheels." His notebooks were filled with designs, sleek sports cars, rugged trucks, and even futuristic concept vehicles. Whenever there was a community event, Marcus would set up a small table, offering to draw cars for kids in exchange for spare change. Though his mother worried about his passion overshadowing his studies, she never discouraged him. Instead, she would bring home old magazines and point out car advertisements, saying, "Maybe one day your designs will be in something like this." Marcus would grin, eyes wide with hope. He worked odd jobs, helping neighbors with groceries or mowing lawns to support his mother. Mr. Jenkins, an elderly man down the street, often called Marcus his little helper and slipped him a few dollars for trimming the hedges. Marcus never asked for much, just enough to buy new pencils or a sketch pad when his old one was full. Despite the challenges, Marcus remained optimistic. He knew his mom worked hard to keep a roof over their heads, and he wanted to make her proud. When he was not drawing, he helped clean up their small apartment, cooking simple meals and waiting for her to come home. She always smiled when she saw his new drawings on the fridge, held up by mismatched magnets. The day of the arrest, Marcus was walking home from the store with sketchbooks in his backpack, thinking about an art competition. The flyer from school said the winner would get their work displayed at the town library, a dream come true. He planned to draw a vintage car, one with long flowing lines and a classic feel, inspired by one of his granddad's old stories. As he walked past the row of parked cars, he noticed a few people glancing his way, their faces tense and wary. He kept his head down, adjusting his backpack and focusing on the rhythmic sound of his sneakers hitting the pavement. Just as he turned the corner, he heard shouting and the screech of tires. Confused, Marcus looked back to see a police car pull up, and within seconds, officers surrounded him. One barked orders for him to put his hands up, and Marcus froze, his heart pounding. He did not understand what was happening. He had just been walking home. One of the officers roughly searched his backpack, pulling out the sketchbooks and flipping through them without a word. His mother always told him, "You're going to make something of yourself, Marcus. Don't let this world change you." As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Marcus tried to remember those words, but fear clouded his mind. All he could think about was how his mom would react when she found out. Sitting in the back of the police car, Marcus stared at his reflection in the scratched window, wondering how a simple walk home turned into this nightmare. He wanted to explain, to tell them they had the wrong person, but his voice felt stuck in his throat. When they reached the station, he overheard one of the officers mention that a car had been stolen nearby. A witness had seen a black boy in the area, and that was enough to make Marcus a suspect. He knew deep down that the real thief was still out there, but proving his innocence seemed impossible. As the officer led him inside, Marcus couldn't help but think of his mom. How she would worry, how she would cry. He just wanted to go home, back to his sketchbooks and dreams of designing cars. Have you ever been judged unfairly? Share your experience. A car was stolen from the wealthiest neighborhood in town. The vehicle, a sleek black luxury sedan, belonged to a prominent businessman known for his vocal disdain of troublemakers. A single witness claimed to see a black boy loitering near the driveway just before the car disappeared. The police quickly zeroed in on Marcus, who was the only black teen seen walking through the area that day. They received the call while Marcus was still in the vicinity, sketchbook tucked under his arm. He was just passing through after picking up some art supplies, lost in thoughts about his next design. When confronted, Marcus stammered, "I was just drawing. I didn't see any car." He tried to explain that he had been thinking about the upcoming art competition, focusing on creating a design inspired by vintage cars. The officers, however, barely listened, their minds seemingly made up the moment they saw him. One of the officers roughly grabbed Marcus's backpack, yanking it open to reveal the sketchbooks. Flipping through them, he scoffed at the intricate car drawings, muttering something under his breath about wannabe gangsters. Marcus's heart pounded. He wanted to scream that they had it all wrong, that he would never steal a car, that he just loved to draw them. But fear tightened his throat, and the words refused to come out. The officers dismissed his protests, roughly handcuffing him despite his mother's pleas when she arrived at the scene. She had rushed over after a neighbor alerted her, her face stricken with panic. "Please, he didn't do anything," she cried, reaching for her son, but an officer blocked her path. One cop barked, "We've got witnesses." He matches the description. "Step back, ma'am." Marcus felt his mother's presence behind him, her shaky voice trying to reason with the officers, but it made no difference. They saw what they wanted to see, a suspect who fit their expectations. As they pushed him into the back of the patrol car, Marcus caught a glimpse of his mom's face, streaked with tears, helpless against the system swallowing her son. At the station, the atmosphere was cold and unwelcoming. The officers led Marcus to a small, stark room where they questioned him about the car theft. He repeated over and over that he had been walking home, focused on his drawings. One officer sneered, "Sure, just out for a stroll in the nice part of town." "Doesn't add up, kid." During the arraignment, the prosecutor convinced the judge that Marcus fit the profile of a delinquent, citing unrelated minor school incidents as proof of his criminal nature. One of these incidents involved Marcus standing up to a bully who had torn his sketchbook, an act that the prosecutor framed as violent behavior. The prosecutor painted a picture of a young thug lurking to steal, using every stereotype in the book to sway the judge. "This boy clearly has no respect for the law," he argued, ignoring the reality that Marcus had never been in trouble with the police before. Marcus sat silently, eyes downcast, as the prosecution crafted a story around him, a story far from the truth. Layla, his public defender, tried to object, pointing out the lack of concrete evidence and the inconsistency of the witness statement. However, her words seemed to bounce off the courtroom walls, unheeded. The judge, his expression stern and unmoved, nodded at the prosecutor's arguments, giving Marcus only a passing glance. It was as if his fate had been decided the moment he walked into the courtroom in that ill-fitting jumpsuit. Layla leaned over, whispering, "Don't lose hope. I'm fighting for you." Marcus didn't respond. His thoughts swirled between confusion, fear, and the nagging sense that no matter what he said, the world had already made up its mind about him. Have you ever been falsely accused or judged based on appearance? Let's talk about it. Layla digs deeper and finds a troubling pattern. Multiple black teens wrongfully accused in the same neighborhood, all without proper evidence. She combs through police records, noticing a disturbing trend: minor infractions blown out of proportion, vague witness statements, and a consistent lack of concrete proof. One case stands out: a boy named Darius, accused of vandalism simply because he was seen walking near a defaced building. Another involves a group of friends detained for loitering, despite no evidence linking them to any crime. Layla contacts their families, gathering testimonies about the fear and frustration of being unfairly targeted. During one interview, a mother of one of the accused teens shares tearfully, "They didn't even ask questions. Just saw my son and assumed he was guilty." Layla brings forth witnesses who recount racial profiling by the local police. One man, Mr. Hale, testifies about being stopped while jogging, accused of looking suspicious because he wore a hoodie. Another young woman, Naomi, recounts being followed in a store by security solely due to her race. When Layla tries to present these accounts in court, the judge dismisses it as irrelevant, insisting that each case should stand on its own. Frustration bubbles up in the community as word spreads about the biased handling of Marcus's case. People start to realize that Marcus is not just fighting for himself, but for all the kids who were treated unfairly. Layla passionately argues this isn't about guilt. It's about racial bias tainting justice. We cannot ignore the pattern that's right in front of us. If we allow prejudice to dictate guilt, we are failing not just Marcus, but our entire community. The prosecutor, unfazed, rolls his eyes and counters, "This case isn't about racial politics. It's about a car theft and the evidence pointing to this boy." He emphasizes the witness's statement, conveniently ignoring the lack of concrete proof. The judge remains stone-faced, more inclined to accept the prosecution's straightforward, albeit flawed, narrative. Outside the courthouse, the atmosphere grows tense. Community members gather, chanting for fairness, holding signs that read, "Justice for Marcus," and "Stop Racial Profiling." Young activists lead the chants, determined to draw attention to the systemic issues at play. Local news crews arrive, capturing the growing crowd demanding change. One woman, holding a handmade sign that reads, "My son could be next," speaks passionately to a reporter, explaining how her own teenage boy was stopped and frisked on his way home from basketball practice. "It's not just Marcus," she says. "It's every black kid in this neighborhood treated like a suspect just for being here." Layla glances out the courthouse window, heartened by the support, but, he declares, slamming his gavel down for emphasis. The courtroom falls silent, the gravity of the moment sinking in. The police chief, caught off guard, stammers through an explanation. "We were following standard procedure, Your Honor. The witness clearly described." The judge cuts him off. "A vague description based on race alone is not evidence. Your department has shown a disturbing pattern of targeting young black men without proper investigation." The prosecutor, already humiliated by the revelation, tries to distance himself from the police error. "Your Honor, we had no idea the evidence was incomplete," he claims. The judge gives him a hard stare, clearly unconvinced. Outside the courtroom, word of Marcus's exoneration spreads quickly. Supporters gather, their cheers echoing through the halls. Reporters scramble for statements, while community leaders call for an inquiry into the police department's practices. Meanwhile, in a desperate move, Kyle's father corners Layla in the courthouse hallway. His face flushed with anger and desperation, he pulls out a checkbook. "Look, let's be reasonable. You've made your point. How much to make this go away?" Layla stares at him incredulously. "Are you trying to bribe me?" He hesitates, then scoffs, waving the checkbook. "I'm offering you compensation for your trouble. You've caused enough damage to my son's reputation." Layla squares her shoulders. "Justice doesn't have a price," she snaps. "Your son committed a crime, and he'll face the consequences, just like Marcus would have, had the truth not come out." Kyle's father sneers, clearly not used to being challenged. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're just another bleeding heart trying to make a name for yourself." Layla doesn't waver. "This isn't about me. It's about making sure the truth isn't buried by privilege. Your money can't buy your way out of this." As he stalks off, clearly frustrated, Layla watches him go, feeling a surge of determination. Back in the courtroom, the judge calls for a recess, his frustration with the police department palpable. Outside, the atmosphere is electric. The community rallies behind Marcus, chanting his name as the truth spreads through the media. The local news stations broadcast live, capturing the powerful scene of neighbors and friends demanding change. Signs reading "Justice for Marcus" and "Stop targeting our kids" are held high, waved rhythmically as chants of support fill the air. Marcus, still dazed by the whirlwind of events, stands with his mother on the courthouse steps. Layla joins them, offering a reassuring smile. A reporter shoves a microphone toward Marcus, asking how he feels now that he's been cleared. He hesitates before saying softly, "I just want to go back to drawing. I didn't do anything wrong." The crowd cheers, and his mother wraps an arm around his shoulders, whispering, "You held on to the truth, baby. That's what matters." As Layla addresses the media, she emphasizes the importance of holding authorities accountable. "This isn't just about Marcus," she says firmly. "It's about the countless young people who are unfairly judged based on race. We need reform, and we need it now." Her words strike a chord, and the crowd roars in agreement. Community leaders promise to organize a meeting with the police chief to address the ongoing issues of racial profiling. Layla knows that this victory, while significant, is just the beginning. The real battle is changing the system so that no other kid goes through what Marcus did. As the protest continues, Marcus's mother looks up at the sky, silently thanking everyone who stood by her son. For the first time in days, she feels hope, not just for Marcus, but for the whole community. Have you ever fought back against injustice? Let us know. Marcus is exonerated, and the police department faces an internal investigation for racial bias. The mayor issues a public statement, acknowledging the community's outrage and promising to hold those responsible accountable. A task force is assembled to review the department's practices, with Layla appointed as a community advisor. The judge, realizing his own prejudice, publicly apologizes to Marcus and his family. In a formal statement, he admits that his assumptions clouded his judgment. "I failed to uphold the principles of justice," he says solemnly, his words echoing in the courtroom. Marcus's mother, though still hurt, feels a sense of validation hearing the apology. Kyle's family faces public outrage. Neighbors, who once respected them, now look on with disapproval, whispering about the father's attempt to cover up his son's crime. Kyle's father, previously influential, finds himself ostracized, and his business suffers from the negative attention. Kyle, struggling to understand the gravity of his actions, remains silent as his family's reputation crumbles. Layla, meanwhile, vows to keep fighting for marginalized youth. she begins working with local organizations to establish legal aid programs for teenagers who are unfairly targeted. The community, inspired by her perseverance, rallies around the cause, determined to make sure no other kid goes through what Marcus did. The media coverage shifts from the crime itself to the broader issue of racial profiling. News outlets highlight other cases where young black teens were wrongfully accused, sparking a national conversation about systemic bias. Social media fills with support for Marcus, with the hashtag number Justice for Marcus trending nationwide. One evening, Layla and Marcus's mother sit together in the small apartment, reflecting on everything that has happened. Marcus, at the kitchen table, sketches quietly, trying to process his feelings. Layla turns to his mother. "You raised a strong boy," she says. "He didn't let this break him." His mother nods, wiping away a tear. "He's always been resilient. Just like his grandma used to say, 'Don't let the world change your heart.'" The next week, the community hosts a gathering at the local park to celebrate Marcus's freedom. Layla gives a speech, reminding everyone that the fight for justice doesn't end here. "We stood up today, but there are still countless kids facing the same challenges. Let's make this the start of real change." Marcus, shy but grateful, steps up to the microphone. He hesitates before speaking. "I just want to thank everyone who didn't give up on me. I didn't do anything wrong, but I know now that sometimes just being yourself can make people judge you. I hope that changes someday." The crowd applauds, and Marcus's mother hugs him tightly. She whispers, "You did good, baby. You stayed true to yourself." That night, Marcus finishes his sketch, a sleek, futuristic car with bold lines and a sense of freedom. He titles it Hope and pins it to the fridge, a reminder that no matter how dark things get, there's always a way forward. What do you think should happen when justice fails? Share your thoughts. Outside the courthouse, Marcus hugs his mom, whispering, "We made it." His mother holds him tightly, tears streaming down her face, but this time they are tears of relief and joy. After everything they have endured, the weight of injustice finally lifts from their shoulders. As the crowd cheers, Layla walks over and places a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You did it," she says softly. "You stayed strong." Marcus looks up at her, his eyes still wide with disbelief. "I didn't think they would ever listen," he admits. Layla kneels down to his level, meeting his gaze. "Sometimes the truth takes time to break through, but you never gave up, and that's what matters." The community embraces Marcus, cheering as he walks out a free boy, holding his mother's hand. People approach, patting his back and offering words of encouragement. A local pastor leans down to tell Marcus, "You're a brave young man. Keep that spirit alive." Reporters gather around, but Layla shields Marcus from the intrusive questions. One journalist manages to ask, "How does it feel to be free after being falsely accused?" Marcus hesitates, unsure how to put his feelings into words. Finally, he says, "It feels good, but I just want to go home." His mother nods in agreement, guiding him through the crowd. As they make their way to the car, some of Marcus's classmates from school rush over. One of them, a girl named Tina, hugs him tightly. "We knew you didn't do it," she says, her voice shaky. Another boy, Jamal, hands Marcus a small sketchbook wrapped with a ribbon. "We all chipped in," Jamal explains. "You shouldn't stop drawing just because of what happened." Marcus's face lights up as he unwraps the gift, flipping through the crisp, blank pages. "Thanks," he murmurs, touched by the support. Back at their apartment, Layla joins Marcus and his mom for a quiet dinner. The tension that once filled the air now feels lighter, and laughter slowly returns to the small space. Marcus doodles absent-mindedly at the table, his lines more confident than they have been in weeks. As they eat, Layla promises to help him rebuild his life and pursue his passion for art. "There's a local art program I want you to join," she says. "They're looking for young talent, and I think you'd be perfect." Marcus looks up, his eyes hopeful. "You really think I could do that?" His mother smiles, squeezing his hand. "Of course you can. You've always been creative. Now it's time to let the world see it." That night, Marcus carefully pins his latest sketch, a powerful, bold car design, to the wall above his bed. He titles it Freedom, feeling that each stroke represents his journey from fear to hope. The next morning, they wake up to messages of support from neighbors and even strangers who saw the news coverage. One message from a local artist reads, "Your story inspired me. Keep drawing, no matter what." Layla texts to check on them, reminding Marcus to stay focused on his dreams. His mom replies with a picture of Marcus sketching, adding, "He's doing what he loves. Thank you for everything." Later, they go for a walk around the neighborhood, the air crisp and fresh. People wave as they pass, offering words of encouragement. Marcus feels a little overwhelmed but also grateful. He knows not every story ends this way, and he silently vows to make the most of his second chance. As they return home, Marcus pauses to look back at the street, remembering how terrified he felt the day he was taken away. His mother notices and rests a hand on his shoulder. "Don't let the past hold you back," she says gently. "You've got too much ahead of you." Marcus nods, letting the past slip away, replaced by the determination to build a brighter future. He knows that doing what is right, even when it is hard, is what truly makes a difference. Have you ever felt justice was finally served? Share your story. The trial became a turning point, forcing the town to confront its own racial biases. The media coverage sparked difficult conversations, as people began questioning their assumptions and the systemic problems within their justice system. Community leaders organized meetings to discuss reforms, and the police department faced pressure to implement anti-bias training. Layla's determination to highlight the flaws in the system encouraged other local attorneys to take on similar cases, advocating for fair treatment regardless of race. Marcus's story becomes a symbol of resilience, reminding the town that assumptions based on appearance can destroy lives. His bravery throughout the ordeal inspired many, especially young people who saw themselves in his struggle. Schools began hosting workshops on racial bias, using Marcus's experience as a learning tool. The judge's change of heart, admitting his own prejudice, set a precedent for accountability within the legal system. His public apology to Marcus and his family marked a significant shift, showing that even those in power must reflect on their actions. It was a rare moment of humility that resonated beyond the courtroom. Layla, more committed than ever, continued working with community groups to support marginalized youth. Her dedication and Marcus's victory gave hope to families who had faced similar injustices but never saw resolution. Marcus continues sketching, his art now telling stories of courage and truth. He participates in local art programs, where he shares his journey through powerful visual narratives. One piece, titled "Breaking Chains," depicts a figure breaking free from heavy shackles, symbolizing his own fight for justice. The local gallery features his work, and during the opening night, people from all backgrounds come to see his art. Marcus, standing in front of his sketches, feels a sense of belonging he never thought possible. He knows his story not only changed his life, but sparked a movement in his community. Whenever he doubts himself, Marcus remembers Layla's words, You stayed strong. Those words echo in his mind whenever he picks up a pencil, reminding him that his voice matters. The town is not perfect, but Marcus's ordeal forces lasting change. Policies are revised, officers are retrained, and people begin to recognize the importance of fighting for equity. Marcus's mother often tells him, "Your courage made them listen." As the years pass, Marcus grows into a confident young artist, using his platform to speak out against injustice. His work becomes a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that standing up for what is right can make a difference. Share this story if you believe in standing up for what's right.